is a woman?
A woman is a quantum oscillation amongst 10,000 fractal paradigms in a post-constructivist matrix. Yeah.
What is a woman?
Brother man, in the Nubian cosmos, a woman transcends amongst multifaceted kaleidoscopes amongst 10,000 ancestral vibrations. Yeah.
What is a woman?
Man, we all know what a woman is. A woman is a...
What is a woman?
A woman is an adult female with almost always 2 X chromosomes. Brother man,
You
and youngin, you a sellout.
I'm a straight Democrat, but I'm for the best person.
Oh, yes,
but
sir.
now why you got Donald Trump?
Because I paid attention in school when I was a kid. I know the true history of both the Republican and Democratic Party. I know that they really didn't switch.
Duh.
During the Nixon Southern strategy, that one became more clever than the other in dealing with black people. We the Democrats, we were the Republicans' friends. We was their friends, but we were the Democrats.
Her head explodes.
How many refugees has Poland taken?
0.
And you're proud of that?
If you are asking me about Muslims illegal immigration, none. Not even one will come to Poland. Not even one if it's illegal. We took over 2 million Ukrainians who are working, who are peaceful in Poland. We will not receive even one Muslim because this is what we promised.
But I asked
This
not
quota
about
system
illegal
failed.
immigrants. I asked about refugees. And Jean-Claude Juncker, the Commission President, says that you're racist. You sound proud of the fact that you haven't taken any refugees.
But this is why Poland is so safe. This is the reason why we had not even one terrorist attack. Look at the streets in Poland, and we can be called populists, nationalists, racists, I don't care.
Well, that clears that up.
In phases 1, 2, and 3, they did what no other studio could do. That every time a new Marvel movie was coming out, we all expected it to be great. We would go into the theaters not wondering if it would be great. We used to go into the theaters expecting, like it was magic. And since Endgame, that magic is gone. We've gone from expecting it would be great to hoping it'll be good.
And the Disney stock just keeps going down and down, and Bob Iger is what's going on with that stock?
Who's racist? Trump. Now tell me what makes him racist.
The fact that he called for the public execution of the 5 Central Park motherfuckers even before they went to trial.
Let's say your daughter gets raped.
I'm looking to kill a motherfucker.
Let's say your daughter gets raped, right? Now, I happen to be in the area because I was wilding, I was robbing people, harassing people. Your daughter gets raped, she's beat so bad that she can't even remember what happened.
She can't even function.
Police arrest me for being in the area, and I admit to doing that to your daughter, right? How would you feel? How would you feel? Answer the question. How would you feel? How would you feel? What did you say right before, just now, right before I let you finish? What you were saying? No, you said you want to kill a motherfucker.
Right.
Is that what you said?
Right.
Yo, if you admit to raping somebody, whether you did it or not, you should never admit it to. And the fact that you did is okay for me to feel like that. Now, you just say Trump is insensitive for not apologizing after finding out that they didn't rape. But at that moment, he had all right to feel like that. Just like you feel the same way.
She was stunned.
Why did you argue that religious services, religious people pose a greater risk of infection than people gathered to argue for defunding the police?
The policies restricted all types of activity in the district.
All types of activity in the district?
Yes, Senator.
Did it restrict mass protests in the district?
I don't believe it said anything one way or another.
Of course it did, because it didn't accept mass protests. If you want to come and protest, defund the police, if you want to support that, that's fine. You can gather en masse, person to person, close up, thousands of people. That's okay. You know the facts. You were a good lawyer. Why'd you lose?
Senator.
Oh, come on, Judge. Don't make me do this. Mayor Bowser was going to mass protests herself personally with thousands of people. At the same time she was doing that, she was prohibiting churches from gathering socially distanced outside wearing masks.
Rules for thee, but not for me.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. Not too long ago, 2 friends of mine were talking to a Cuban refugee, a businessman who had escaped from Castro. And in the midst of his story, one of my friends turned to the other and said, "We don't know how lucky we are." And the Cuban stopped and said, "How lucky you are. I had some place to escape to." In that sentence, he told us the entire story. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
This is what Reagan later meant by "we are a shining city on a hill."
Good afternoon, everybody. This is a Friday edition of The Conservative Take. My name is Kyle. Welcome. And if you were here yesterday, I hope this goes a lot more smoothly. We'll see. We will see. I will be checking to make sure that my microphone is staying on, that doesn't get disconnected, that YouTube doesn't kick me off and I get pushed somewhere else. All that has happened in the past, but hoping for a good show. So today I'm going to talk to you about the main topic, but then the bulk of the section of the rest of this show, I'm going to be covering the events of the week, what's on my mind, answering questions, and going through my X feed and my Truth Social feed, because a lot of stuff's going on and I just want to just cover it maybe ad hoc. But I got to lead off with what's going on with ActBlue, which is the headline story here. And if you don't know what ActBlue is, I will get into that in a second. Just to cover some high-end issues here, or just regular stuff that we talk about here before we get started, I want to talk to you about essentially supporting us on Locals, which is a paywall site that we use that is part of the Rumble platform. And if you go out to Rumble and see us there, you will see a link there for join. Go out there and help to support us there. And I think we're asking for, I think, $2 a month or more if you like. And it's a deviation from our YouTube model, which we're no longer using. So just to keep that in mind, guys. And with that, I appreciate your support. All right, let's jump in here. We're going to talk about ActBlue. And first of all, let me just tell you what ActBlue is and why this is a game changer when it comes to the Democrats. The Democrats are relying on a group called ActBlue, which is a political action committee. I have it here on the screen here. It is a committee that was founded in 2004, meaning it's about, 21 years old. It's a so-called nonprofit. And what it does is it collects money and it distributes them out to various political organizations. If you're not familiar with the way the campaign finance laws work, it's sort of at a high level like this. If you are a candidate or if you are a company or a group and you want to donate to a campaign, you must be part of a various chapter within the political tax code. I'm not sure what it is, 501c, one of these, whatever its organization is. And for that categorization allows you to give money to other PACs or campaigns or anything dealing with politics for the most part. You can't give them to individuals, and I don't believe you can give them to companies that are not 501c3 or whatever this earmarked is for this political action committee. That being said, a lot of times it actually is 501c3. I see here, but it's actually 501c3, 501c4 for social welfare programs or political organizations or organizations in general, civic organizations. So it's a 501c3, meaning that you cannot commingle private donations from an individual to a PAC and come out of that and go anywhere else other than another political action committee or a campaign. So why that's important is because this is being used, or what it's being accused of being used for, is a money laundering scheme, which I'm about to bring up right here. So what we saw essentially in 2018, where President Trump was in his first term and the midterms were coming up. And it appeared that there's a lot of momentum for the Republicans, and it looked like the Republicans were going to hold the House, because I think that they had the House when he came in 2016, and it looks like they were going to keep that. Well, within the last month, ActBlue, this organization right here on the screen, dumped a ton of money into political campaigns, House races mostly in California, in the tune of anywhere over $50 million were raised in the last month, taking some of these tight House seats in California primarily, and there's a bunch of them out there, and flipping those elections, infusing them with money, and thereby giving the Democrats the House majority, putting Speaker Pelosi in the chair. And so that was huge, because from that point on, you start seeing impeachments, and a bunch of obstruction from the Democrats in the House, because whoever runs the House basically controls the purse strings. The Speaker of the House can determine if things come into committee, out of committee. If they go to a vote, they control parliamentary procedures and rules. And the opposition party or the minority party is pretty much helpless. Now, that's where we are now, where it's sort of where it was in 2016. The Republicans have a slight majority in the House, very slight, and the Democrats are looking to take that back. You have people like the caveman Al Green, who, after shaking his cane at President Trump at the joint session of Congress, said that he was going to continue on the impeachments, and he was going to continue on drafting a resolution for impeaching. So for that to pass, they would have to have majority in the House. So make no mistake about it. If the Republicans lose the House of Representatives in the next midterm, which is 26, then you can almost rest assured that they will impeach him for a third time. So that's where we are. But what happens now, bringing us into ActBlue, one of the advantages we have now is that ActBlue is in utter chaos. Because what was happening, and I'm saying this all allegedly, that they were involved allegedly into a money laundering scheme, and they're being accused of that by not only Republicans, but also by union members who are affiliation with them. And here's a letter here from Jason Myers talking about, my office has become aware of multiple serious allegations that ActBlue Civics Incorporated and ActBlue Charities Incorporated together have engaged in fraudulent, deceptive, and otherwise illegal activities in the Commonwealth of Virginia and have aided and abetted others in doing so. It just goes downhill from there. So that's the letter from this gentleman here, Jason Myers. I'm not sure who he is, but maybe I'll read it here. But it says here in this article, this is from the jail report, that the rats are jumping ship. ActBlue, major Democratic fundraising group, saw an exodus of senior officials and has plunged into turmoil as it faces an investigation from Republicans in Congress. So essentially, they're leaving. I heard as many as 7 of the top executives have left, and that most of the attorneys and counsels have left. It says at least 7 senior members have left ActBlue in late February. Right now it is mid-March. The New York Times reported Wednesday, citing a letter from the organization's unions. Okay, this is from the unions, and this is from Jason Myers. This is from a union member, I guess. Yeah, we just read that. So he goes into talking this. It says here, the internal lawyer of ActBlue, Zain Ahmad, who was the last remaining lawyer in the organization's general counsel's office, reportedly wrote an internal Slack message on February 26, 2025, that, quote, "We have whistleblower policies for a reason," unquote. This statement was made before his access to email and other internal platforms was cut off and was subsequently deleted, according to a screenshot obtained by the New York Times, which we just saw up there. Ahmad's comment suggests a concern about potential retaliation or the need to protect individuals who might raise issues with the organization. This is where we talk about the whistleblower laws, basically giving protection to people who are brave enough to come out and call out their employees or employers or whatever without the fear of retaliation. Through the specific context or details prompting this statement remain unclear, as he did not elaborate further in publicly available information. He is now on leave from ActBlue. So here's the article here. Top ActBlue executives are leaving in droves. Here is a tweet here from the Eric Daughtry feed. He has here, Democratic fundraising sites ActBlue faces internal chaos. New York Times, mass resignations, accusations of retaliation, scrutiny by congressional Republicans, unions warn of instability. Now, I'm going to get into this a little bit and what it actually means and how it plays into, let's say, U.S. aid and how ActBlue was complicit in this whole scheme in which they can get people elected in office. And I for one, when I heard about ActBlue, essentially a little bit before, around 2008, somewhere in there, Obama era, but didn't think much of it because there was another group called Acorn. I'm not sure you remember those guys. I believe, I'm not sure if it's the case, but when Acorn went down, Acorn was another leftist political action committee that was used for a lot of voter irregularities, to say the least, that they would just do. They got caught red-handed and got disbanded. And I suspect that many of those people that left Acorn got into ActBlue. But what really drew my attention to ActBlue was when we saw the red wave that we thought ended up being a red trickle, being not so much at all, more like a red mirage in 2018. Even though it wasn't totally devastating for us, it was still something that should have been a much bigger win for Republicans. And nonetheless, ActBlue played a major role in that. And a lot of people suspected that as well. And so we have here, let's see, this is O'Keefe, I think. So let's see if we can play this particular video here. This is ActBlue and all those involved must be investigated at the highest level. If the group's alleged dark political influence, money laundering, and identity theft scheme is true, then there must be accountability. And I imagine there could extend to thousands of people around the world. So this is from the OMG group. This is we'll take a look at this. I'm gonna rewind it and put the volume up.
I don't remember giving hundreds of dollars to for those two. Well, I don't know what to do now because I don't know what to do. I should think that ActBlue would have been suspicious and gotten in touch with me.
Most interesting is that her giving goes from $15 to $5,000. In the past 2 years, that you gave 5,300 times. Does that number make sense?
5,300 times?
Yes.
How much is the money?
$86,708. Does that number make sense to you?
$86,000.
Yeah.
I did that.
21 and 22. You think you gave over $30,000?
No. No. I don't give $200 or $150.
Do you donate like every single day to ActBlue?
To ActBlue? No, because see, I'm a nurse.
Right.
And I work in 6 days a week.
2 years in 2000.
Okay, so what you're seeing here is, all right, so they're basically going to the addresses of the people who are on record for giving money to ActBlue. And we have to understand how much money these guys are giving out. I believe it's upwards of $50 billion with a B dollars as of 2024. And this money coming out is coming at such a large quantity from so many different individuals, small donations on a daily basis from people who make, good wages, but not the kind of wages that they need to kind of put this kind of money. $800,000, I believe, in one particular case where one person was making just, I would say right around $100,000 a year, and you're giving $800,000 in like a couple of months in a period. That is suspicious, and this is what we're seeing here. You're seeing these citizen journalists going to these addresses and basically asking them, interrogating them to say, "Hey, is this true? Did you give this much money in this date for this particular cause?" And they're saying, so far, no.
21 and 22, you donated like 488 times.
488 times?
Yeah. It's like every other day.
No.
What about in one day doing 11 times?
No.
You wouldn't?
No.
And how, when you donate, how much do you usually give them?
You see, like, I give them $50. So that's my name on there.
Yeah, so 813, 11 donations in one day. Does that make sense?
No. See, the thing what I don't understand is that they call me, they send stuff to me, they're looking to see what I'm giving. And they hold that against me because they want to cut my whatever they call it, Medicare.
21 and 22, you think you gave over $30,000?
No. That's basically what it is.
And so what do you think of all of that?
All of these? No. I don't give $200 or $150. That's why I stopped giving it to Apple.
You stopped giving out food for that reason?
Yeah.
Right, so we have here, what I found most interesting is that her giving goes from $15 to $5,000.
Oh, gosh.
$199,000, basically $200,000 over 2 years of 2022 and 2021. You think
from Joanne?
Yeah, does that make sense?
No.
Okay. So that's why I thought you should look at it. I counted 171 donations over the 2 years. To do a donation online probably takes about 3 minutes. 3 minutes times 100 transactions is, I don't know, a few hours of work. That means she's sitting all day doing this. Do you think?
Yeah, no, I know.
Do you think that that's her doing that?
It could be, but I didn't know. I didn't realize it was that much.
Right, and you were saying you were not happy with how much it was.
The way you say this now, it seems to me that somebody must have been using.
I have a newfound respect for somebody who's doing a lot of good. I understand you don't not necessarily like it, but
because we're not that rich.
In 2022 and 21 total, do you remember approximately how much you gave to ActBlue? You don't know.
I think something like about 30,000.
30,000?
I don't really know.
All right, so we're halfway in here. I'm not going to go through all this. This is a 6-minute clip. Essentially, it's basically just exposing, again, that these people, these donors, may have given a little bit of money to the ActBlue, but not in the quantities that are on file. And I'm going to quote a video I saw today. And if I find this link, I'll let you know. This is from my memory, but it basically goes like this. So money laundering has to start with a bank. And from a bank or a credit card, from there, they have certain checks in place. They have different red flags that they look after. They have certain regulations they have to adhere to. You know, I mean, there's been people who have gone to jail because their ministry took out more than $10,000 a day to pay off their employees because they're not paid by checks, they're paid in cash, and triggered an audit, and that ended up putting them in jail for over 10 years. If you want to know who that is, I'm talking about Kent Hovind and his ministry. And so the point being is that banks have these checks in place, and there have been watchdog groups that have asked the Biden administration for this information, and there's been stonewalling. In other words, they're not helping or actually cooperating at all. But the little bit of information they did get up to this point, they went and verified and found out that, hey, they're right, that these irregularities are not accounted for. There's no way that these things happen, and they want to investigate further. And so that's what's happening now with ActBlue. And if you tie in, the important thing is, if you tie in, let's say, U.S. aid, and how U.S. aid was a government organization that was designed essentially to give money to foreign entities. That worked in collusion with, I'd say, ActBlue, and this is how it would allegedly work. So if I were to have a company or an NGO or a nonprofit organization, and I wanted to, let's say, benefit a particular politician who wanted to get rich, wanted to get wealthy, how would it work is this way. So the money would flow into U.S. aid, and from U.S. aid, it would flow into my organization. Let's say I am the United Front for Democracy. Okay. So I get in, let's say, $10 million. Great. I got $10 million. I'm going to earmark, let's say, $1 million to, or I say $500,000 to a Republican rhino and to a Democrat person, an establishment on each party to grease the hands of those people so that we can keep the money flowing. The additional $9 million would maybe go into a program overseas somewhere, which could have been used to help destabilize governments or to just prop up a shell company, whatever it is. That money ends up coming back into the states, and then from there it gets funneled out there, and everyone essentially is happy. So we get money, we take some off the top, we give the money out to overseas causes that they do what they're supposed to do, and then we feed and grease the pockets of the people to keep this thing flowing. And ActBlue is the grease that keeps all that going, because ActBlue is the operative that actually helps to move the money and make sure it gets in the hands it needs to get into and not be detected. And one thing I was looking at now is that Trump talks about waste, fraud, and abuse. It wasn't just him. It was also Obama. It was Biden. It was Bernie Sanders. It was Chuck Schumer. It was Nancy Pelosi. All these people back in 2008, 2010, even Bill Clinton before that, talked about waste, fraud, and abuse and how they were going to do something about it. They never did. And so, but this process here, I would submit, is all three for sure, but really not, because it's designed to do exactly what it's doing. It's designed to be what it is. It's acting according to plan. That's why no one's really trying to do anything about it. And so when you saw U.S. aid go down with, which pretty much we're finding out now, it was happenstance. It was a situation where I think Elon and his crew were looking at one thing, and then they looked at U.S. aid and saw that and did a little digging, and then decided that that's the one they should go after first. Well, it looks like really that's the mother lode. And to see U.S. aid go down the way it did, all of a sudden you're seeing layoffs at media outlets. New York Times, you see Politico, who was giving money. You're seeing CNN lay off people. You're seeing a destabilization across the media, across the board, and just panic fire. And then you see George Soros's group out in Europe, George Soros's group out in Europe being disbanded. And then you see ActBlue. We see the rats scrambling, attorneys quitting, executive members, at least 7, resigning. And it pretty much gains the point now where it's defunct. And then you see here, the OMG group, the O'Keefe Media, put this together. And you're seeing real people verifying that the money that they have on file as giving to ActBlue, they didn't give. And this is the same thing that they saw before when they saw the little bit of information that they received from the Biden administration before they were being stonewalled. And now these watchdog groups are asking for more. And that's pretty much where we are now. Right here we see Sprinter Brief says, ActBlue is collapsing under its own corruption, perfect symbol of Democratic dysfunction. ActBlue lost 7 long-term top staff in the last 3 weeks. This is from March 7th. And their last remaining lawyer has been locked out and placed on leave. OMG broke the story. They were laundering massive money to Democrat campaigns through unsuspecting donor accounts, likely from Adreno. Let's listen to this. How long is this? This is a take a look at this.
Do you work for ActBlue? Are you with ActBlue? Sir, do you work for ActBlue? We've uncovered thousands of contributions. We talked to people in Maryland who told us that they didn't make those donations. Yet your website, ActBlue, listed as the pass-through for this money. Do you work for ActBlue? Why do you guys want to keep this a secret, what you're doing? Are you with ActBlue?
When they saw my OMG press badge, they immediately asked me to leave the premises and threatened to have me arrested for trespassing.
Have the right to trespass anyone they want in Massachusetts.
And I have a right to be here.
What is Massachusetts?
What's that?
We're just asking questions.
So that's a pretty standard MO. Essentially, people don't talk, they clam up, they find them on tape, and then they get them dead to rights, and then they lawyer up, and then they shut down their media, they shut down their websites, and they just try and crawl under a rock so that they can't get necessarily prosecuted. And so so this looks like it's going to be huge. And so why am I spending this much time on ActBlue? Because Democrats, not only do they have a serious problem with messaging, which they pretty much lost completely, not only do they have a problem with consumer confidence or voter confidence, not only do they have a problem with infighting within themselves because some want to go mainstream like Gavin Newsom or try to, or in AOC, and then others just want to continue on with the leftist, Marxist, in-your-face agenda. But they also have a problem with finances now. They have a problem with greasing the wheel that spins their engines, that makes them work. One thing I saw this past election cycle, and one of the reasons why I also knew that the Democrats were in serious trouble on the ground, because they talk in terms of like voter integrity, is that it takes a lot of manpower and money to do cruddy things in an election, especially on a national stage. Now, on the COVID, things were different. Money was flowing, laws were being violated. People were scared, and the media was complicit. People hated the media hated Trump. They weren't going to try and get him out no matter what. And the mail-in voting was just out of control, and we know that's very difficult to verify simply because of chain of custody. For that reason alone. But that being said, the election of 2024 was a lot different. There was no COVID, and the Democrats literally wanted a low turnout because they knew that they had lost the low propensity, urban, white, young, under 45 male vote, Black and Latino male vote. And they didn't want a high turnout because they did get a high turnout. They would be voting for Trump, and they didn't want that. So instead, their strategy was, we're going to double down on the Hitler, double down on the Nazi and the fascists and all that stuff. We're going to play to our base and hope for the best and hope the media helps us. And they tried. CBS tried. ABC tried. It didn't work because now we can bypass the mainstream media and get our own information and have the same access to such information that the mainstream media has, but we analyze it in a different way. So now with ActBlue out of the way, or getting out of the way, it makes the midterms more of a fair game, because if they don't have the money to grease the pockets of these congressional leaders, if they don't have the money to buy these robocalls and buy people on the ground to push campaign offices and to push paraphernalia and do rallies and do think tanks and commercials and all of that, then they're going to have a hard time having a major impact like they had before. And also, it's going to affect other things downstream as well, especially if ActBlue is the pass-through, as he says here. If that is the case, that they're the pass-through, then it's going to be impacting politics at a much broader scale, which we will probably find out for sure in about a year and about 11 months. A year and 12 months. Say that. Well, that's 2 years. A year and 8 months. We'll see that. And I'm just thinking that this is just a big deal. So I'm going to keep my eye on this and keep reporting back on this, because it is just an historic type of deal. Because if this can come crumbling down, the Democrats are really, really in serious trouble. And another thing I would say, one of the things that people were saying in terms of a red flag is that conservatives typically give 2-to-1 to charities, then do liberals, mainly because a lot of conservatives tithe. That's 10% right there. And conservatives are just generally more giving. And that's been a statistical fact for several years now. And so the fact that they can give, in this case, this one lady said that she gave 11 times in one day. And she said that definitely did not happen. That she only given at maybe $50, I think she said. That was it. And certainly not 11 transactions in one day. And this is like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of times across the board to raise $50 billion over the course of their lifetime. So that's really, really incredible. They raised $50 million in just 7 hours after Kamala's 2020 speech. So that's another thing too. So I have this article here. This is from The Hill. This is from 2024. This is the summer of last year. ActBlue rakes in nearly $50 million in 7 hours after Harris campaign launch.
Yeah, the Biden campaign's war chest will now go to Vice President Kamala Harris. There's a post on X that said that he was endorsing Harris for the nomination. The Harris campaign, or the Harris folks, quickly moved to put in FEC filings and to take over that war chest. Now we'll see if any Republicans are going to lob some complaints or legal challenges at that. That is entirely possible. You know, Republicans will want to try to muck up the system right here.
I love how they say, now, after the fact, here you have, we're about, 6 months later or some change. All of a sudden now they're saying, okay, well, the Republicans are trying to muck it up. They're going to try and say, try to do a legal challenge. Well, yeah. And now the funny thing is that they're going to have to eat crow on this, because this whole thing here, if there was legal challenges, which I'm sure there was definitely good reason for it. So they have a correction here that a total of $47 million was donated to ActBlue to all races in the 7 hours after Harris launched her campaign on Sunday. A previous version of this article contained incorrect information. It says here, this is the key thing here we just talked about. Small dollar donations gave nearly $47 million on ActBlue in the 7 hours after Vice President Harris's campaign for president's launch Sunday afternoon, the Democratic fundraising platform announced on Sunday. We heard that all the time, and that was the narrative, that Kamala Harris is so popular that in 7 hours they raised $50 million from small, single, private donations. Just gives the impression that she is just so popular. And what the thing about that is, it's very similar to the fake polls that come out, is that they're propped up so that people can think that she's doing better. So that in other words, a fake poll comes out and says, hey, Kamala's leading by 5 points, whatever. That means that they will get more money because everyone wants to support a winner. And then the campaign raises that money. And then as the campaign goes on, if the poll is as inaccurate as it was, then people were heard, which means they'll all come down to the real number at the end so they can save face. And then the only people who make money in that case are the consultants. And that's what happened here as well. It's a big scam. It is something that needs to be addressed. I'll tell you right now, I remember when the McCain-Feingold bill was passed. It was a campaign finance reform bill that came out in the 2000s, early 2000s, which essentially limited and capped people where they can give money, how you can give the money. It was revised with super PACs later, but for the most part, you can only give, I think at the time, $2,000 to one particular candidate, $4,000 if you were married, something like that. And it had to be, you had to put like occupation on the thing. You had to put your name, your occupation, and if it was above $50, I believe you have to report it. If not, you're okay. So all these stipulations and regulations on top of that, but they had all that stuff in place, but stuff like this was getting through no problem. And if you're going to have regulations, let's have a full holistic regulation to deal with stuff like this, but also deals with the organizations that allow pass-throughs and the distribution of said money into these campaigns without any oversight. And that's what my big concern is there. All right, so here we go back here. This is AFI, American First Insight. The New York Times reports that ActBlue is in turmoil. Again, the 7 executives left. 2 unions representing ActBlue employees are questioning the group's stability and calling it alarming. So this is all repeated stuff. We said this before. Let me see. This is anything for ActBlue with the Department of Justice. I'd like to see that. Something called smurfing. I'm not sure what smurfing is. If you know what smurfing is, let me know. I've heard this term a couple of times. So this guy here, Dublin Marley, says because the DOJ is going to hunt down smurfing from non-government aid organizations and U.S. aid money. Basically, once the money gets overseas, you give a contract to a company and they give you prepaid credit cards. Oh, I see. Prepaid credit cards that are funneled back to the United States to donate to ActBlue. Gotcha. There's a ton of money. People who said they didn't donate 10,000 times to be, I'm sorry, didn't donate 10,000 times to ActBlue. I want arrests and I want people in jail for a long time. Yeah, I mean, the Democrats accuse us of, let me see, what do they call this? Rigging elections. They accuse us of complaining. They complain that we are deniers, election deniers, and they claim that we are conspiracy theorists and all of this. But you look at this stuff here, and you have to just say, okay, here you have all this information here, and how can we not be so-called conspiracy theorists? I mean, how can we not think that when this stuff here is obvious and the stuff looks at you and you know that it's just not valid? You say to yourself, look, this dog simply does not hunt. All right, I think I've drugged this story out enough. I'm going to see if there's any comments out here for anyone out here who has said anything. Okay, so Jay Red here, thank you for commenting. Jay Red here says, and the Democrats are routing LA fire donations through ActBlue. Now, I wish I had a segment on here on Gavin Newsom, because as he's podcasting, he's letting his city, literally his country, or he's letting his state literally burn. They just gave out $3.4 billion. Where they're asking for $3.4 billion as a loan to offset their healthcare system of giving away illegal aliens and money for healthcare and benefits. And so he's letting the state run to the ground. And as Jay Red mentioned, there's allegations that the LA fire donations were also run through ActBlue. And if ActBlue is that sort of entity, like I said, a pass-through, then all of a sudden, a lot of things are going to come down and the money's going to dry up and they're going to be in serious trouble. James Foley says here, ActBlue is a literal scam. I got limited access to it. It's a money laundering political PAC, a scam, just like WinRed. I'm not familiar with WinRed, but I'm sure if it's a political action committee, that's probably for the Republicans. It's probably the same thing because, by the way, guys, I say Democrats, but it's both sides. Absolutely both sides. They're the uniparty. And that's where it's going to be the most difficult for Trump, because you got to deal with a lot of these rhinos out here who prior to the midterms are going to keep quiet, but after which are going to pretty much turn. And be curious to find out what happens with that. All right. What else do we have here? So yeah, money. So J Red says definitely not alarming, more like hilarious. Rules for radicals: accuse your opponents of the things you are doing. Exactly. Saul Alinsky, essentially, that's what the Marxists do. That's what they do. So, okay. So what do we have next here? Just looking through this. Hope everyone's having a good night here. I think this whole thing with ActBlue and is just a symbol. I really cannot talk tonight. What is going on? I cannot talk tonight. It's a symbolic sign of the woke culture or the globalist identity or the leftist Marxist communist agenda in this country beginning to crumble. And we're going to look at this symbolically at BLM Plaza, because right now, or they may have already finished this, in Washington, D.C., there was a huge BLM or Black Lives Matter mural on the street. It was massive. And it was actually ripped up by the city because they were threatened by a Republican congressman, threatened them, told them to get rid of this because we will act on this and you will not be happy. I have a video here somewhere if I can find it. I had it here somewhere. Let me pull this up so you guys can see it. Oh, here it is. Oh, I had it right here the whole time. All right, here we go. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So so that was the Black Lives Matter mural being removed from Washington, D.C. downtown, a city where I'm from, and embarrassed to say, and sometimes that I'm from there, but things are getting back on track. And if I want to get back to what I was saying before, I do have a couple more things I want to talk about. I have a share screen here that I want to show you. And this is dealing with the Trump administration and, or actually what they're finding out about ActBlue. It's a good analogy here that I want to bring up here. And that is the fact that, let me find it. Just closing some windows out here, guys. Give me a second. See, here it says, one of the most exciting aspects of Doge is suggests that the entire world is conquering radical rule. Radical left is fake. Tax-funded astroturf, meaning for any country, all you have to do is get a populist in one time, Doge that sucker, and the entire left simply vanishes. That's right. And here, this is Anesthesia says, what we're finding out in real time is the entire modern left is just smoke and mirrors. There is no left-wing voter base. All the elections are rigged and fake, and the liberal media outlets have no audience and are kept alive by U.S. aid funding. All their politicians and political pundits are paid by U.S. aid to say what the government wants. The whole thing was a house of cards. Also says here, in hindsight, this should have been immediately obvious to everyone when Biden couldn't fill a parking lot and Kamala had to throw concerts to get people to show up. Many of us Anons have been saying this for years. Add to the list of things we were right about. This person here, Greg Ladd, says, he said, be careful. Don't count them out. Unless the modern right becomes the inclusive party, this would be just another ebb in the cycle. And I agree with that. Greg, I agree with that. I think the fact is that the left knows that the right has their number, but the left is consistent in their fighting. The left doesn't ever give up. They continue on regardless. And that's going to let me segue into another piece here, because last night I mentioned to you, I was going to talk to you about an article that we were going to put out today, which we did, about the 5 reasons why the Democrats will not be able to rebrand. I'll get into that in a second before I get into anything else. But the fact is that they continue to fight, and we don't. Now, the only thing on our side right now is that we have President Trump, who will be in office for 4 years. And hopefully behind him, we will have, I'm hoping, J.D. Vance, who I'm endorsing right now. I think he's the man for various reasons. I'll do a show on him in due time. But those two are fighters, and that's what I'm hoping for. If it was just a globalist or Rhino or middle of the road, wishy-washy, put my finger in my mouth and put it up and see which way the wind's blowing kind of person, then I would 100% agree with this guy saying, yeah, don't get, be careful, because, this could just be another ebb in the road. And I'm hoping that that won't be the case, because the leadership that we have coming up after Trump, I'm hoping, and we will continue to fight on, and that Trump can win these legal battles in court. He put in an executive order to fight against the radical left activist judges who, regardless of who they are in their stature on the judicial branch, are acting like executives, acting like the president, and trying to circumvent everything the president does in his own branch of government. The executive branch is the second most powerful branch in the government. The House and the Senate is the most powerful, according to the founding fathers. But we know for sure that the judicial branch is the least powerful. But yet, because of activism and because of poor education and because of our education, revisionist history, looking at the Constitution as a living, breathing document, not as a original intended document based on principles that are founded in the writings of the time, the Federalist Papers, for example, then that's where we should get our framework from. But because of this misappropriation of logic and history and reason, and sprinkle in some Marxism, socialism, you have these judges who are activists. Instead of being the kind of people that the education system was supposed to be designed for, God-fearing people who are going to be enlightened to love the things they're supposed to love and hate the things they're supposed to hate. That's what the founding fathers wanted out of education. Love the things you're supposed to love and hate the things you're supposed to hate. When that went away and it became federalized, and in 1976 in particular, it became something where you regurgitate dates and facts and what have you, and you ultimately become a citizen of the state. And thereby, because of that, you have to defend the state. And to do so, you have to be an activist. And that is what we are having here with these activist leftist judges. They're activists. They're not doing their constitutional duty as framed by the founding fathers. They just aren't. So, all right. So let's get into the Democrat Party. I want to show you this article that I did this today. We released it. It's a free one. We put one out yesterday on the paywall, but this one is absolutely free. And I will share this tab with us now. Let me share it over here. I got 2 screens going on. All right, perfect. So here's the article. We're going to read this to you and share it with you. This is the 5 reasons why the Democrat rebrand will fail. All right. So I'll just go through the list here, but essentially I'll read the introduction. With Donald Trump back in office, the Democrat Party faces a crisis. The policies of the radical left are being aggressively rolled back, and the public sentiment is shifting toward common sense, America first priorities. In response, some Democrats are floating the idea of a party rebrand to regain lost ground. Signs of this shift include Governor Gavin Newsom of California's controversial podcast featuring MAGA figures like Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk, which has drawn ear from fellow Democrats. Or Michelle Obama's new podcast focusing on personal well-being over politics. And by the way, she even said that the biggest thing she doesn't like about her husband is that he is inherently late. I won't say more about that. Additionally, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer support for the GOP-led continuing resolution, which I think passed today, I'm not sure, I guess it did, to avoid a government shutdown has been seen as a massive move toward centrism. However, this rebranding strategy is doomed to fail, at least in the short term, and here's why. And it's very simple. Number one, the reason is because the Marxist wing won't surrender their decades of work. I mean, they've been at this for a long time, these people. They've been fighting this stuff, going all the way back to, who's the people that tried to bomb the Capitol? I forget the guy's name, but anyway, and going way back to the 30s, infiltrating government and the whole thing with Hollywood, with Reagan trying to break up when he was coming up in the 60s. They were entrenched for a long time, and they're not giving this up now where they've come this far. It's not going to happen. So the Democrats have to worry about that. Also, that group is 20% at a minimum of their base. If the Democrats try to pivot away from leftist policies, they'll lose these guys, right? And without these voters, the Democrats will face massive electoral disadvantage, meaning that they're going to be looking at, you can't lose 20% and win a race. You just can't. Especially when you don't control the majority of the issues. When you're already behind the issues by 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, then you're not going to win if you lose an additional 20 to that. You're going to get smoked. And that's what they're looking at. And this is an article we looked at yesterday called The Dems Are Caught in a 80-20 loop, and it's killing them. Essentially, I'll leave this article out here as well. We covered it yesterday, look at yesterday's show. But basically, you can't take 80% of the issues that everyone likes and then try to run on the 20% issues that everyone hates. It's not going to work. It is a Ponzi scheme in ideas. Just not going to work. So let me get back to where I was. Let me share this again. I lost my share. All right. So number 3 reason is going to be wokeness shielded their ideas, and without it, they can't compete. So I'll read this one outright. So for years, leftist ideas have thrived not only because they were popular, but because they were, not because they were popular, but because they were protected from open debate, meaning that they were, you were canceled, you were ridiculed, you were lied about, you were mocked, scorned, doxxed, the whole nine. And they use wokeness as a cultural weapon. Labeling critics as bigots, racists, or science deniers kept policies like radical climate action, transgender ideology, and open borders from facing real scrutiny. Those issues are all losing issues big time. All 20, 30 issues that you cannot win on, as Kamala Harris found out. Trump's return has shattered that shield, meaning they had no more protection. His administration is actively dismantling DEI initiatives, cutting off funds to progressive causes like ActBlue, like USAID, like Doge is doing in general across the board, and demanding transparency in government spending. Without protection of censorship, Democrats now have to win arguments like the old days, where you can say, hey, I think that supply side economics is a good way to go, because if you have more goods and the demand is high, then the price will stabilize. But if you have less goods and more demand, then you're going to have higher prices and vice versa. That's how things work. But then you have someone else who may say, well, no, I believe in a government-controlled Keynesian style economics with regulations, and you have to account for human greed and crony capitalism, and so thereby the government has to get involved to price control and check what. That's an argument, and those are the kind of ideas that we're going to have to get to if they try to rebrand. And either way they do that, they're still going to lose, because their ideas still absolutely suck. I've said that for over 30 years now. They just are horrible, horrible ideas. They cannot win at all in an open debate, which is why I hope Gavin Newsom keeps bringing on Steve Bannon, keeps bringing on, let's say he brought on Charlie Kirk, keep bringing in these people that come in. Because what's going to happen is one of two things. One, he'll get red pilled, or he will move to the center, bring his party to the center as well, meaning that they're going to have to compete at a level that is fair. And again, they will absolutely lose that. So I'm game either way. Number 4 is the Doge and Trump's transparency initiatives are exposing corruption. So one of the biggest threats to the Democrat Party's rebrand is the rapid exposure of government waste and corruption. Trump's executive order mandating radical transparency in federal spending have already uncovered billions of wasted on DEI programs, climate regulations, and pandemic-era policies. At the same time, the rise of decentralized platforms led by Doge-style internet sleuths, who, by the way, the left are trying to dox and attack and scorn, has stripped legacy media of its monopoly on information. As I mentioned before, you can bypass the lamestream, drive-by, leftist, Marxist media and get it for yourself. Stories about corruption in government-funded climate sciences, vaccine mandates, and FBI collusion are spreading like wildfire. This makes it nearly impossible for Democrats to control the narrative. This is why Joe Rogan was such a big deal, when he came on that podcast. Which is also why the Democrats are trying to duplicate that. But it's not going to work, because, again, their ideas are horrible. And again, if they try to move to the center, this document comes into play, because 20% are going to absolutely hate it, and they're not going to go with it. Look what AOC stands right now. She's already talking about primarying Chuck Schumer. That happened today. Hakeem Jeffries said no comment, but essentially you know that he was upset with this whole thing. And the whole thing about it was this continuing resolution was something that they had already passed a few months ago. It was a win for them because it was what they wanted before, but because Trump is in office, they can't possibly give him a political victory. So they threatened to shut the government down, which I wish they had, because they would have been in worse trouble. They probably would have been blamed for it. People would have said, you know what? Wow, Democrats, they're out of office. I mean, they're not in government and the government's not around. Then maybe they're not needed. Not to mention the person who's in charge of the Office of Business Management, Mr. Voigt, would have been in charge, and he would have been making the determination as in terms of what's necessary and what's not necessary. And he more than likely would have made the programs that Democrats love unnecessary and made the programs that the public, the people, love necessary, like the malls and the parks and the museums. Thereby, there's no hurt from my side of the table, because I'm still going to DC. I'm still going to the Washington Monument. I'm still going to Lincoln Memorial. I'm still going to the Air and Space Museum, because it's not shut down. So to me, I'm happy. Democrats want pain. When the government shut down before, they made sure everything was shut down. So people were feeling pain. People who spent their entire year to go to DC to visit and tour couldn't really do it because there was nothing there to see anymore. Everything was shut down. You remember that, how they shut down the Veterans Memorial? Remember that, the World War II Memorial? They shut it down. I believe some veterans went there anyway, even though it was shut down. I believe that's correct. But that was what they wanted. So a shutdown, I think, still would have been beneficial. But nevertheless, it didn't matter. There's backlash because Chuck Schumer did the smart play. He punted and decided to take one for the team, even though he was grandstanding, and kept the government open. He could have been more tactical at that. He could have been a little bit more. He could have said something like, look, guys, this is what we have to do. I'm changing my mind. This is why. And this is why Trump still sucks. But this is what we have to do. He didn't really do that. He just didn't give them a reason why he backpedaled. He just backpedaled. So, but that's on him. And number 5 is election integrity reforms mean they can't lose their base. So you can't lose that 20% because you need them for the things that they do at 3 o'clock in the morning with trucks showing up at polling offices, if you know what I'm talking about. See, Trump's administration is aggressively pursuing integrity laws requiring voter ID, purging voter rolls, implementing stricter mail-in ballot regulations, and these changes make it much harder for Democrats to rely on their traditional turnout operations, which we saw in 2024. You have to have boots on the ground to implement these kinds of policies. You just can't do it by yourself. It takes people, and people who are funded, people who have marching orders, and all that comes with red tape, all that comes with receipts that you have to either hide, mask, or distract, or eventually at some point in time stonewall, so that you don't have to report on it. They thought that Kamala was going to win, and I don't think they even thought about worrying about any accountability because they didn't think Trump was going to win. But he did. And lastly here, it says, without these advantages, Democrats must rely entirely on their actual voting base, which is bad because right now in Pennsylvania and in Michigan and in Florida and in New Hampshire, well, let me take off Michigan there. I can speak specifically for Pennsylvania and Florida and New Hampshire. Florida is getting more red. It's already more Republicans in Florida. And it's getting more red by about, I think that's what I saw reported on, I think by about 5% between November. New Hampshire's gotten more red as well. More Republicans are registered in New Hampshire as well. And Pennsylvania is not quite there yet, but within a few months it will be at the rate it's going. And as Florida goes, Pennsylvania goes the same way, and Pennsylvania influences Michigan. So as Florida goes, Pennsylvania goes, and Michigan goes. So if Florida goes right, then Pennsylvania will go a percentage to the right, and Michigan will go a little bit of a percentage to the right. Since Trump won all 3 of those, that's a win for Trump. Okay, so that's why it's important. And that's why I think the midterms right now, with the way it's looking, I'm not predicting anything yet. It looks like we're going to maintain the House and probably pick up a few more seats, just as it stands now, because they don't have the ground game in place. They certainly don't have the money in place to do what they have to do, and nor do they have the issues to run on right now. And they have a very, very little time to do it, because the more Trump goes with his agenda, the issues that he cares about are the issues that we care about, as documented in that CBS YouGov poll after the joint session of Congress speech. All the issues were 60% in favor of or much higher. And all he has to do to hold serve is do those things. That's it. And stay out of anything ultra controversial. Like someone has said, maybe pardon Eric Chauvin. That would not be a good idea. That kind of thing would backlash big time. So as long as it doesn't do anything like that, I'm not saying I'm opposed. No, don't get me wrong. Don't hear me wrong here. I'm not saying I'm opposed to that, but doing so could jeopardize the whole can of wax. So, and I think the MVP right now has to be his chief of staff, Susan Wiles. She's keeping him on lockdown. She is running a tight ship. She's making sure that any messaging that comes out of the White House is under their message, their control. If Pam Bondi goes out and talks, does the junket thing, there's a reason for it. Any statement that comes out from the press secretary is measured, it's briefed, it's talked about. There's been very few missteps. There's been one, that was the one with the Epstein files. All of that was a disaster on optics. But aside from that, I think they've done a very, very good job on that. And I don't expect any kind of issues with that going forward. It's funny. The Democrats are so stupid. The one time the President Trump, his administration, that is, dropped the ball with those, those pamphlets or dockets, wherever they had, they waved out in front of the White House about the whole things and turned out to be things we've already gotten, and them smiling and cheesing in front of the cameras and all of that. And Pam Bondi promising that there would be stuff that, or demanding that the whole list be on my desk next morning. Nothing happened, no statement. I'm pretty sure that Susan Wiles, the chief of staff, was pretty upset by that. And I'm pretty sure that you won't see that kind of misstep happen more. But I think what's interesting is Susie Wiles, not Susan. What's interesting is that whole thing got pushed to the back page of the headlines after the Democrats behaved like children at that joint session speech. So they blew that. They had a good opportunity to take that and maybe build on it. They couldn't even do that. They totally screwed it up. All right, so I lost my train of thought here. So let's just go down to the very end here. So in other words, Democrats are stuck between a rock and a hard place. The Democrat Party rebrand attempt is a non-starter. They cannot afford to lose their radical left base, but they also cannot win over moderates while clinging to progressive extremism. Meanwhile, Trump's administration is dismantling their policy gains, exposing corruption, and making elections more secure. For now, Democrats are trapped and either double down on the radical left and continue losing mainstream voters, or they pivot and risk internal collapse, as we saw a little bit today with Chuck Schumer. Either way, the future looks bleak for them in the short term, or perhaps permanently. Now, I will cover a little bit more with the Democrats and the Whig Party and how they could possibly be done and down for the count. If there is a valid party that can come up, I think within 20 years, you may see another party take over the Democrat Party. It won't be overnight, but they could be a marginalized party for the next 12 years for sure. And in doing so, another party could come up and then maybe take some of that middle, because the Republicans will make a misstep in the next 12 years or so, which the Democrats could take advantage of. But if they keep going with where they're going, there is no end in sight, because every single issue they actually have owned and own now. So let me drop off here. There's a bunch of comments here. I'm going to go through these. Jay Red said, Trump needs all Republicans to fall in line. Yes, for sure. No bucking. Yes, he's trying to come off as a moderate for sure. And I'm not sure it's going to work. I mean, the guy is smooth. I give it to him. He's smooth, and he is. I think the word narcissism is way overused. It's way overused, but I think he's probably a classic case of that. I mean, he's able to talk to a staunch person on the opposite side of his political ideology and bring him on his podcast and talk. That takes a certain level of skill. And he's good also at word salads. He comes across as articulate. He comes across somewhat as caring. He comes across as a better Trudeau. But the problem with Gavin Newsom is that number one, he's really shady and he's sneaky in the way he frames things. Like he tried to get Charlie Kirk to separate himself from Trump by taking credit for what's going on, and he's shiesty there. But he is also unable to go really deep in any kind of issue. And Charlie exposed him on that. So the average leftist can do your basic talking points. They can get that pretty well. But when you hone it on them, the good ones can go 2 layers, all right? The really good ones can go about 3. Those are the ones like Bill Clinton and those guys. But none of them can really go 4 or lower in terms of the why. You ask why 4 times, a Democrat can't answer those. They would have to deflect and move things around like Gavin Newsom did with Charlie Kirk when he was talking about book burnings. He said, "Oh well, or like pornography in textbooks, in children's books." He was like, "Well, the Bible has." That's not the question. The question was books that are now in the libraries with pictures. The Bible doesn't have pictures, all right, and it's a different thing. But he shifted the blame there and did whatever. And Charlie Kirk didn't let him get away with it. So, but he is good at that. So that a little bit concerns me. But the fact that his home state is a wreck is a problem. And the fact that even going to the center is still going to cause some issue, because even centrist issues against conservatism versus liberalism is still going to lose because they make no sense. I mean, you can take all the wokeness and throw it away and just talk to them on like inflation, or talk to them something about the minimum wage. So a perfect example, minimum wage. So the left will say, yeah, well, you have to have higher wages because, it's a living wage, and, poor black kid and it's in high school, how's he going to pay for his Jordans, whatever? So he needs to be paid $40 an hour at McDonald's. All right. And the conservative would say, no, it's not a living wage. It is a starting job to gain more skills so you can be productive in the workforce, give you confidence, and you can build into something else. But no, you're not going to get paid $40 an hour at McDonald's, because all it's going to do is going to raise the prices of the hamburgers and fries and everything else. And eventually you're going to see robots in the store. Oh, we already see that now. So you're going to actually make it worse for the people who need those jobs, because their jobs won't be available, because they're for people, low skill wage workers. They're not for people to come out of college and go work at McDonald's. I mean, if I have a 4-year degree in college and I'm an engineer, but I can go to McDonald's and make $80 an hour. Forget it. I mean, why go engineers? I'm flipping burgers. You see what I'm saying? So that's not what it's about. And that's why we win that argument on issues just like minimum wage. And it goes across the board on any other issue for that matter. And so with Gavin Newsom, I think his position is unattainable. But at the end of the day, I embrace him coming to the middle, because all it's going to do is red pill him, red pill more people, make people see that Trump actually, conservatism actually is a more viable option. It will cut down the narrative of Hitler and fascism and all that kind of crap, and bring in issues of capitalism, of fairness and safety, and it would just help everybody overall. So, good comment there. 80-20. Yep, I was talking about that as well. Yeah, ID. So you can get a library card. You have to have an ID to get library cards, but you can't. You can vote for the president of the United States, or your congressman, or your dog catcher, or your mayor, without even identifying who you are. And the movie that what was it? Dinesh D'Souza had, I think it was Trump Card. I think we were talking about the last scene in that was talking about how it was probable for this scam that was happening with people who were in college, out of state, how the possibility exists based on the laws and how things work, that if I live in, let's say, Maryland, and I go to school in, let's say, Nebraska, and I'm registered to vote. Well, I'm not registered to vote, and let's say I'm not registered to vote in Maryland, but I go to school in Nebraska, and elections coming up, I realize that it's in November. I'll still be in class in that time period, but I want to vote. So I do an absentee ballot to my state in Maryland. And I register to vote in Maryland, absentee. They mail it to me. I fill it out in my dorm. I mail it back to Maryland. The election board gets it, and my vote gets counted. However, because I'm a resident in a dorm in Nebraska, ballot harvesting was happening where people were going to these dorms and getting the names of the students who were out of state and then registering them to vote in Nebraska. So even though I don't know, even though I voted for my person in Maryland, I had no idea that I voted twice, once again, in Nebraska, because my voter roll was added because I'm a student and a resident in Nebraska. That's the fraud that he predicted could happen and probably is happening. Let me see. Are you doing voice to text? Yeah, I hate that. I stopped doing voice to text because I'm afraid of privacy there, but I may get back to it. If you know of a way to do voice to text without using Google, let me know. I would love to do it because it's so convenient. I don't want to have that going out to the cloud and, just the whole privacy thing in general. All right, so let's we're doing this for about hour 21. Let's just browse my X feed and see what's out there, because I put a bunch of stuff out there that I shared that I want to cover. And I'm going to just wing it here, guys, just because I just want to see what's out there and comment on it as I see it. So let me go and share this. Let me do this. I haven't shared this yet. I want to share this clip. This is Alan Keyes from Maryland. This is a debate with Barack Obama in 2004. And I pinned this comment on my X feed because it's so awesome. And Alan Keyes is probably the smartest politician I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, this guy here is smart, and he can, just see for yourself.
Mr. Keyes, on the Channel 7 debate last Thursday night, you said, and I'm quoting you, where procreation is in principle impossible, marriage is irrelevant. You went on to say it was irrelevant and not needed. What about marriage between people who are well beyond their childbearing age? Irrelevant, not needed?
No, it's simply a misunderstanding. The word in principle means relating to the definition of, not relating to particular circumstances. So if an apple has a worm in it, the worm is not part of the definition of the apple. It doesn't change what the apple is in principle. So the fact
it retains its appleness.
It retains. It retains.
Look at these idiots. They're laughing at him, thinking it's funny, but watch how he shuts them all up. By the way, he's running against Barack Obama for the Illinois, I believe, Senate. Yeah.
To act as if concepts are laughable means that
Let me go back.
Not relating to the definition of, not relating to particular circumstances. So if an apple has a worm in it, the worm is not part of the definition of the apple. It doesn't change what the apple is in principle. So the fact
it retains its appleness.
It retains. It retains. To act as if concepts are laughable means that you want to be irrational. Human beings reason.
You said
it
was irrelevant.
Human
and not
beings
needed.
reason by means of concepts and definition. We also make laws by means of definitions. And if you don't know how to operate with respect for those definitions, you can't make the law. An individual who is impotent or another who is infertile does not change the definition of marriage in principle. Because between a man and a woman, in principle, procreation is always possible. And it is that possibility which gave rise to the institution of marriage in the first place. As a matter of law, as a matter of law
possible
and
in principle.
But when it is impossible, as between two males or two females, you're talking about something that's not just incidentally impossible, it's impossible in principle. And that means that if you say that that's a marriage, you are saying marriage can be understood in principle apart from procreation. You have changed its definition in such a way as, in fact, to destroy the necessity for the institution. Since the only reason it has existed in human societies and civilizations was to regulate from a social point of view the obligations and responsibilities attendant upon procreation. So when you start playing games in this way, you are actually acting as if the institution has no basis independent of your own arbitrary will.
Every time I watch that, I'm just like flabbergasted. I mean, that is such, this dude, man, he is incredible. But my point is that this is why we will win any debate. If you give us equal time without interrupting, without gaslighting us, without doing any of that other crap that they do, you will get utterly destroyed, which is exactly why Rush Limbaugh's show was absolutely lights out, because you couldn't mess with him. And he came from the, oh gosh, what's the guy's name from New York, the conservative out there? I'll come to me in a second. But he came from that mindset. And Alan Keyes is just brilliant. And my point of showing this is you can take a Milton Friedman, go back to some and look at some of his debates, and see that, and just see how, especially his ones on Phil Donahue, he would give debates with people where they would give him equal time without interrupting him. And it was just apparent that he was just winning the argument and winning the crowd over. And so this is what we'll see. These days are long gone. So I encourage Gavin Newsom to do more of this, because what's going to happen is they're going to figure out, okay, you can't do that anymore because you're making more Republicans. Stop it. We have to shut them down, because that's the only way it works. You have to have that radical leftist base who doesn't care about the issue. All they care about is the revolution. All they want to do is win. You have to have that radical, crazy, insane base to push the water for you, to interfere for you, to block, dox, cancel, destroy, maim, and worse, your enemies, so that your message can go forward without any opposition. Otherwise, people have common sense. They have God-given common sense. We are created in the image of God, and we have common sense and knowledge of understanding. And we want truth, and we don't want to be BS'd. So if we get that fair playing field, we win every single time. All right, so let's go down here a little bit here, and let me see here. So Elon Musk posted this, that they're let me see what Pam Bondi is saying here. Let me play this.
We have people we're locking up on that. We have someone in jail right now from one of the dealerships. They threw a Molotov cocktail through a dealership. They're looking at up to 20 years in prison. So if you're going to touch a Tesla, go to a dealership, do anything, you better watch out, because we're coming after you.
Wow.
And if you're funding this, we're coming after you. We're going to find out who you are.
So, I mean,
we have people.
Yeah, this is economic terrorism. They're trying to make it so that if you buy that it's a cost prohibitive and safety prohibitive deterrent to buy a Tesla, because you're afraid that you will have your car bombed or destroyed, or you'll get stopped in the street. Basically, it's a moving MAGA hat. Now, I wore my MAGA hat back in 2020 on the subway in DC with my family at the time, and the guy was on the subway. He got off the subway, and then he beat on the glass as the train was about to pull off. My daughter was in there with me. At the time, she was about 11, and he gave me the middle finger, right, and behind the glass. I'm like, okay, all right. So that's what we're talking about here. But I kept wearing the hat, man, the red one, any chance I get. Now, I'm in a red state, mind you, but still, it doesn't matter. I just refused to be intimidated like that. And there were some people who were actually lost their lives wearing their MAGA hat out in public. We know of that kind of thing. And it is a little concerning. I'm not saying I'm not scared at times, but I don't think that we can let them win that way. Now, I can't tell people to go out and buy Teslas. Personally, I'm actually against EVs, not because I'm against the principle or the environment, because I think that's a joke, first of all, but the concept of EV to me doesn't work, because I don't think you can get the mileage out of it. It's reliable as much as you want. Can you go from here to, let's say, 300 miles away on one recharge? Or if you do on a half recharge, which you would do on a gas tank for 300 miles, could you find a place to recharge, right? And how long does it take? To me, I'm not ready to do that right now. If I were to do that, it's going to be of a luxury vehicle that I'm going to go to and from only. But because I live on a homestead, we have long driveways, dirt roads, outbuildings. Then a Tesla doesn't make sense for me. However, if I could, I would, and I can't encourage other people to do that because it's cost prohibitive for many people. So, but I hope people do buy them because I don't want to see the left win like that. I mean, they've literally lost billions of dollars on Tesla, and these leftists don't care that they're putting other people out of business. That it's not just the Elon Musk that they're hurting. They're hurting the stockholders. They're hurting the people who work for the company, who have kids, who have to feed their families and pay their mortgages and rent. But they don't care about that. All they care about is a stupid revolution. And I have a quote here from, I haven't verified it, but I think it's from Thomas Sowell. I have it here. It says, activism is a way for useless people to feel important, even if the consequences of their activism are counterproductive for those they claim to be helping the fabric of society as a whole. Unreal. All right, let's go back here. Let's see what else we have. That was Pam Bondi. Okay, so this is cute here. I got to show this. So this is a clip of, I believe this is Elon Musk's son. And this is President Trump about to go on Marine One. I'm assuming this is on the, let me see if I look at my map in my head, North Lawn, South Lawn, I believe. So this is Marine One, and they're taking off. So let's take a look. That's the coolest video I've seen in a long time, man. I mean, is Trump babysitting? That's cool, man. That is so super duper cool. So anyway, so this is Michael Rappaport. If you know who this guy is, he was a massive Trump hater. I mean, he would call him the worst names possible. He was in several movies. He was in, I believe he was definitely in, he was in the movie Higher Learning, for sure. Yep. He played a skinhead in that film. Is that right? No, am I thinking about the wrong film? Yeah, that's right. Yep. Higher Learning, I believe. Anyway, so now it seems like he is being red-pilled. See, he is on the side of Israel, and he doesn't like the fact that Hamas is being propped up. I believe he's Jewish, but the position he's taking is that the stances that we're allowing the pro-terrorist Hamas group to be in this country as appalling. I would agree with him, and he has this to say about it.
Trump, he told you what was going to happen. He told you what was going to happen. Columbia University and these universities. He said you f around and you find out. That's basically what he said. He said you want to keep placating, you want to keep playing games with these terrorist supporters, these terrorist sympathizers, these terrorist fanboys and fangirls. We're going to squeeze you real nice and real proper. And Columbia University, you just lost $400 million. 400 mil. That ain't nothing to scoff at. $400 million, that's a lot of money. Because you can't get control of your university. And 400 million is probably not as much as you're getting from other places, but you just lost $400 million. And I say fantastic. I say great.
So if Michael Rappaport becomes a Trump fan, I mean, that's saying something. But the thing is, again, it goes back again to those 80-20 issues. And some people happen to be single issue voters. Personally, if I had to say one single issue that I'm for, is pro-life. Not only because it's biblical and it makes sense and it's compassionate, it's because to me, pro-life is foundational to everything. Now, there's some so-called pro-choice Republicans. I get it. But to me, I take things to the logical conclusion. And I take those conclusions to the Bible. I frame it out of the Bible because I trust the Bible as the one source that I can, in its original Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek text, which we don't have anymore, mind you. But the translation we have, that's what I'm basing it on in terms of absolute truth, as that. And if I don't take a pro-life stance, then everything I do and say in life on this channel or anywhere is hypocritical. It's hypocritical. So that's my single issue. But for some people, it's something else. Some people it's gun control. Some people it's taxes. Some people it's fiscal conservatism. Some people it's national defense. And maybe for Michael Rappaport, maybe it is Israel. So when that happens, some people just, if you just don't vote Democrat, they still are screwed. He can go vote for the Green Party. He can go vote Libertarian. He can go stay home. It doesn't matter. He's one less vote the Democrats are going to get. And that's fine for me, particularly. So yeah, that's a big deal. Here we have, I won't play all of this, but this is Brandon Straka of Walk Away. He and I were connected. I finished in the top 10 in his Walk Away videos of this past summer. I finished in the top 10. I'm happy about that. He gave away a $10,000 prize. But he and I chatted on X as this was going through whatever. My video was on Gettysburg and my trip up there. One day I'll play it, I guess. But I say that because when I see him, I know that in real life, he's just as genuine as he is in this particular interview. So he is going to this particular fence line to talk to these women who are, well, they're liberals. They're leftists. And one's the mother and one's the daughter. And I'll play it here a little bit.
So you just say things like whether they're true or not.
I say things that were in the media responses.
Okay,
but not
the
Trump.
media never said that I shit on anybody's desk.
I don't even know what your fucking name is, and I don't care.
So why are you so angry? That's great. No, I appreciate it. Why are you angry?
All right, I don't allow cussing on my channel, so I didn't vet that, but sorry about that. So anyway, so they're basically arguing, and he's trying to explain to them, say, hey, it's not that big a deal. I don't want you to be angry. Why are you being so upset? Can I explain to you where I'm coming from? And they didn't want to hear it. They walked off. These people are utterly miserable people. This is Elon Musk talking about how he, in 2022, how he no longer was going to vote for a Democrat because they're a party of division and hate, and they're doing dirty tricks on campaigns. And he just was done with it. And he predicted that he would be attacked later. And that's what we're seeing now. This guy here posted egg prices down, gas prices down, mortgage prices down, inflation down. The CR passed, which is the continuing resolution, which is mentioned about Chuck Schumer, passed. Ceasefire in Russia, Ukraine, and we're in week 6, and that's a win-win-win. More stuff about the actual Gavin Newsom deal and how much money he's wasting in this particular. Actually, this is something different. So this is basically Gavin Newsom was actually tweeting on the fact that the Dow Jones index was down, but that's the only thing he would give out. And so this retort was, under your watch, Governor Newsom, California ran out of water to fight the fires, which is someone just mentioned here on the chat here about the U.S. aid being funneled to pay that or use it to exploit that, and lives were lost. Your responsibility. As for your claims about the stock market, where was your outrage when things got even worse after Joe Biden took office? the hypocrisy is staggering. Shame on you. You should know better. But Gavin Newsom doesn't care. As long as he has a talking point, 1 or 2 layers, he's fine because he can pivot very, very masterfully. And this is Eric Doherty showing same things about that particular tweet. This is Elon derangement syndrome. I hadn't seen this yet. I don't want to watch it. 6 minutes long, too long. And this is Bill. What's the guy's name? Bill Burr. He went on a rant on the what's that show with The Breakfast Club. He basically called Elon Musk Hitler and how the military should be going after him. And so people are putting these posts of him doing this particular salute, which they accused Elon of doing, even though many people who do that chest, to the air thing, it's ridiculous. They'll find anything to create a narrative. And so they're basically showing him that he is of the same accord and he could be accused of the same thing. This is funny here. This judge here, this is Babylon B. Federal judge appoints himself as president. That's good. And here's our article that we did earlier. And you saw this tweet we did earlier from Thomas Sowell. And that's going to be all I'm going to do for that. So I'm going to end the show here and end up any remaining questions that are on the screen. And we'll close out this particular live stream. So this particular live stream did pretty well. It didn't shut out. It didn't stop. It didn't stall. I didn't have to go to my second studio monitor, which I'll show you right here. Sometimes I have to go to this monitor here. I didn't have to do that today. So we're good to go. So that's good. So Jay Red, thank you for your comments here. We'll keep going here. Jay Red says, back in the day, Rush was on the Oprah show. That's right, he was. That is right. What's that guy's name? His mentor. He was up in New York. He passed away. I can't think of his name. I always forget this guy's name. If you think of his name, let me know. These people are insane. I concur. Battery technology, you still have to tear up the earth to get the minerals. Yes, that's another good point, man. Lithium. That's another good point. I mean, I like Elon and everything. I like what he's doing for the most part. I'm just not feeling the EV thing, but because they're attacking him so much, I almost want to buy one just to spite him. I probably never drive it. Whatever. Trump boys. I'm the best. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm the best babysitter, the greatest. Some might say, yeah, it's just beautiful. That was the cutest video ever, man. I'm sorry. The other cute one was when Elon had X in the car, and he had some music playing, and I find the clip. But essentially, he was like, "What am I going to do? I'm going to help Trump." It was cute. All right, here we go. The CR is funny because that's a bathroom in the Philippines. CR is short for comfort room. I've never been to the Philippines at all. We had a good video out there in the Philippines because there was a gold medalist out there who won. And I know MacArthur went out there and rescued them after being kicked out. And one of our biggest videos on the channel was based on that particular weightlifter who won a gold medal, the first one. So you can do car streams in the Tesla. I might go test drive one if I can. What if I can do that? Maybe I'll do that. All right, guys, we've been going about an hour and 43 minutes. I'm going to stop it here. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Jay Red, thank you for all the comments. James Foley as well. Thank you for that. Those are the only ones who comment today. I think next week we'll go back to maybe doing a giveaway at some point. Please, again, check us out on Locals. If you are a former member on YouTube and your name's down here below, I'll probably be reaching out to you to see if you can consider coming back over to Locals and supporting us there. And you saw the article that we did before. That is the kind of content that we do there, and we're going to continue doing that. We're going to do live streams there as well, exclusive live streams, and additional exclusive content, particularly on the swamp, which is what I'm looking forward to doing probably this late spring, 14-part series on the swamp based on Larry Schweikart's book, Dragon Slayers, The Six Presidents' War with their respective swamps. And then somewhere I'll fit in there an 8 or 10 week class that we do every year called Biblical Citizenship in Modern Modern Society, I believe. And it's essentially a class I facilitate through Wall Builders and through the Patriot Academy. And it's a really good exercise in understanding the framework of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence and the Federalist Papers and the hundreds of sermons that came before any of that, right after, the Puritans landed and Jamestown and Plymouth were established. So it's a comprehensive history of this country in terms of its ideology when it comes to understanding government, how it relates to Bible and its framework, and how people who came here in this country weren't just here to raise families. The Puritans came here to come to a country not only to have political freedom, which is what you hear a lot of because they were kicked out of England, but because they wanted to expound the gospel and spread the love of Christ to the world. Now, you don't hear that, but that's what it was. And so we learned about all of that. And so I'll be making more announcements on that going forward. And I'll be doing analysis after class on locals, which will be exclusive there. All right. One more comment, I think. And yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, J Red. Thank you. Come on back, please. And hopefully we'll do a giveaway next time. And I think it broke up this time. So now I really am going to leave. So with that being said, it did break up at the end. Have a great evening. I'll see you guys in the next one. God bless.